I think it is my ignorance which drove me to do what I did in Puerto Rico, and let me explain. I was not aware of the colonial relationship with the United States and the history. I was not aware of the feeling of second class citizenship. I was not aware that Puerto Rico didn't have voting representation in the Congress. So I went there and I said, as I saw injustices playing out in front of me, beginning with the slow response, I said, well, this is BS. This is unacceptable. And what I encountered were people who were like, oh yeah, but it is, and oh yeah, but it is. And I remember thinking, oh no, 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 we're going to ring that bell 5 times until they hear it, and we're going to call him, and we're going to call her, and we're going to. And I think that naivete and that ignorance served me well. Because had I gone into the hurricane aware of everything I'm aware of now, I might have sat back and been like, well, yeah, but you know, that's just how it is. That's just how it is down here, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Has anyone asked you to take a position on status?
Absolutely. All the time. All the time. I think people are very curious to know. And quite frankly, I would be curious to know if I wasn't David Begnaud, what David Begnaud thought. Because here's this guy who loves us and is always here and is representing us. I wonder what he thinks. These are not people who I think are trying to screw me over. These are people who just genuinely want to know, what do you think? And
Yeah.
by the way, in private conversations with my partner knows what I think, and we have wonderful discussions. But I don't ever want to be involved in a discussion where I give an opinion. It would be defeating. It would defeat the purpose that I'm trying to serve. Let me say this to you. When I first got there, I assumed that everybody wanted statehood.
Really?
Or because of my privilege. And I've only come to really understand what this word privilege means beyond the usual use of it. But I grew up in a state, and I grew up with voting representation, and I grew up with all this kind of stuff. And the power didn't go out all the time, and the water didn't look brown all the time. So when I got there, I remember thinking, well, of course they need to be a state. They need to be a state because they need X, Y, Z. And then we were doing a documentary, which I still am so glad we did that half-hour documentary. And I remember we interviewed, my team set up a group of people in Old San Juan in this beautiful second-story flat, and we did it. And I'm telling you, those people rocked my world. I walked in, and I just assumed that they would say, well, yes. And they were all, I would say, 35 or younger, and most all of them were opposed to statehood. Most all of them were opposed to statehood. And I was like, I said to myself, you really have a lot to learn. Like, you really have a lot to learn in terms of listening to where this is coming from. And so thereby started me on my journey of realizing why they don't want it, or maybe why they do want it.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you say when folks who are not Puerto Rican ask you, well, what do Puerto Ricans want?
To be heard. To be heard.
But and in regards to status,
No,
what
no,
do you say?
no. I never am asked about status from someone who's not Puerto Rican.
Oh,
I
really?
never get a status question from someone who's not Puerto Rican.
Only Puerto Ricans are obsessed with that?
Well, I think only Puerto Ricans are arguably aware of that. I think
Mm.
thereby lies the awareness issue, right? Where people who are not Puerto Rican don't understand what is the biggest discussion. I mean, Ms. Bonilla, every conversation I have with someone at some point trickles back to whether it starts with, ends with, or in the middle, status. Everything. You know, here in the States, it's Republican or Democrat. In there, it's like status. Everybody wants to talk about status. And so I've never had someone who's not Puerto Rican talk to me about the Puerto Rican status. Nobody. And I think that is an awareness issue. And listen, it's one area where I'm a little reluctant to do it. There's a whole lot of people who want me to, do like a town hall about status. And I think it would be fascinating. But guess what? You got to get that right. You got to get that right. And I don't quite know how to get it right yet.
Yeah, yeah.